do is we'll go ahead and get started. So you're seeing the Windows VM here, and the first thing we want to look at is, okay, so if your backup is not working, okay, or you haven't run a backup in a couple of days, what are some of the things that you can do in order to see what the issue may be? Is it worth contacting support? Is it worth taking that 10, 15, 20 minutes out of my day to contact support and to maybe open up a support ticket? Or is it something that I can really quickly finish or fix myself in 2 or 3 minutes? So what you can do is you can open up your status window at any stage, and you'll get your status window from the systems tray down here. If you just right click on it, so if you just right click on that there, you have the option there to open up the status window. The other options that you have here is to start a manual backup directly from this tab, or you can open up the settings window. Okay, so what we're going to do is open up the status window. I have mine on screen already, so you just click status. I would open up this status window. So here, first things that you can look for to see if the backup hasn't been running, to make sure that the option here is clickable, the start backup button. If that's grayed out, what that means is that something has stopped the Mozy service. And the Mozy service basically is the item in the background that's running the backup for you. Okay, so that needs to be started all the time. And you'll see that inside the services menu, like this, okay, where you will list all the services that are on your machine. And here's the Mozy one here. If I was to stop that, and that'll process, and once that service is stopped, then you'll notice over here, when it does eventually stop, as with everything in a live scenario, it's taking its time. But when that does stop, that start backup button will be grayed out. And that just means that we're not able to start a backup. We won't be able to start an automatic backup. And it can happen from time to time if something changes on your machine. Maybe an antivirus software gets updated. Maybe there was some change to your firewall settings or something along those lines, or something new software you may have installed on the machine. Maybe something like a nanny software, so something that is there as a security feature for your kids. Okay, so as you can see there now, that start button is grayed out and it can't start a backup. If that does happen, all you need to do is open up your services window and come back to the Mozy service and just start it again. Okay, and that can happen from time to time. It's a rare occurrence, but it can happen. And if you ever notice that button is grayed out, you can just come into the services there and start it. So that's one thing you can quickly mark off the list of things that may be after happening. The next, if you're looking at any other issues, they will be listed here. Okay, so if you have a backup run and there was an issue, it'll tell you here. So directly from this line here, if the last backup wasn't successful, then it's going to tell you there. So for example, if I start a backup here, I come over here and I stop that service, okay, and kill that backup, it'll show up here any error message. So it'll tell me, the last backup was attempted and it was incomplete. Now that could be for a variety of reasons. It may be that you're working on a laptop computer and you close down the lid because you're going to a meeting. That puts the computer to sleep. It kills the internet connection, and therefore you're left with no access to the internet. The software can't run. And then what will happen is if an automatic backup is attempting to run at that time, or if you have a scheduled backup to run at that time, it doesn't actually happen. Okay, so that leads to a failed backup, and you'll see that inside in the Mozy status window. If you want to learn a bit more about the backup, okay, so what was actually causing it, what was causing that error, or what was the error itself, then what you can look at is you can look at the Mozy history tab. Okay, so once this stops now, I will open up the history tab, and what we're looking at there in the history tab then, so if I just open up the settings window here, so you can open up the settings window directly from here on the status window, or you can right click on the item in the system tray and hit on more settings there, and that'll open up this settings window. I've already pre-opened, okay, and this is the history tab here. So I just have a quick poll here. I just want to check to see how many people are familiar with the history tab. And have you viewed the history tab before? So if you see that poll on screen, if you can just answer one of the options that are there. So have you viewed the history tab before? Okay, so most people have seen it before. Some people haven't. Some people have only viewed it once, and they may have not really known what it was or what it does. So basically, the history tab is a very useful one to see what was going on in your backups previously. Okay, so if you notice there now, if we just open up that again, we can actually run our backup there. So the history tab just allows you to see what backups have occurred, how they occurred, and also then what actually happened in the backup. So you'll see it's broken out into tabs. You have the top section here. So if you look at the top section here, then you have the type of backup, the start time, how long it ran for, the result of the backup, and then the additional information here is roughly around the files, how many were prepared for backup, how many actually got transferred, okay, and so forth. If you click on any individual backup, okay, so for example, if you click on the backup here, it gives you additional information in the window down here. Okay, it tells you the files that were backed up, it tells you where they're located, and if there's any other details, they're listed here. So let's say, for example, I click on this backup here. So in the other details tab here, you can see on this file, it's telling me that the file is being removed. So what's happened there is that file was selected for the previous backup. It's now no longer selected. So it's just giving me information around the files that have been backed up. And it's also giving me information of where they're located. So if it's giving me, say, for example, a particular file, and in the other details tab I see an error about that file, then I know where it is and I can go there and I can actually open it up. Okay. If I click on the backup here that's failed with an error, okay, what I can do here is actually click on this hyperlink, okay, and that is actually a hyperlink, so that'll open up the support website and I'll actually open up the knowledge base article that's linked to that. So it'll actually show me the knowledge base article that is for cancel error 1. And that'll allow me then to see what are the basic steps that I can attempt to resolve this issue. So we saw ourselves how to resolve a cancel error 1 is to go in and actually start the service again. So that allows you at any stage, if you have any error messages in your backups, you can open up here into the history section, and under the results section, if the backup is finished with an error, then you'll actually get a hyperlink to our knowledge base article, and it'll take you directly to the relevant knowledge base article. And there it'll give you some basic steps that you can carry out yourself. Apologies if the internet is a bit slow on my VM here. It usually is. So it's just taking a bit of time to open up that knowledge base article, but we'll look at it anyway in a second. But the history tab is very useful for that. It's very useful to get a quick idea of what's happening in your machine, and also for the knowledge base articles and taking you directly to them. So as you can see here, it gives me the knowledge base article and it tells me then how to resolve the issue. So what was the cause and how to resolve it. And it gives me the steps for both Windows and Mac. So that is quite useful. It'll open it up directly for you. You don't have to go searching for the knowledge base article. And oftentimes, if you're to contact support and you have that error message, they're the first steps they're probably going to be giving you anyway to make sure that we can check them off. Sometimes, in rare occasions, the steps that we give you for the default steps may not work on your particular issue. It could be reporting that error message because it's something similar has caused the backup to fail. So something that would normally report with this error message is reporting the same error message, but it could be a slightly different issue. So at that point, we would always start from the basis. So we'll always start from the basic steps that are in the knowledge base article, and then we'll troubleshoot out from there. So you're basically just discounting what the potential causes could be to look at the bigger picture. Okay, so the history tab is very good for that. It'll give you a quick overview of what's actually happening. And also, if you want to go more deeper, if you are, let's say, if you're a Mozy Pro administrator and you want to go a bit deeper in terms of your troubleshooting, then what you can do is you can match these. You can match this time here that the backup is run at is actually is taken from the system clock time. So you can compare and contrast that if you wanted to do a bit more troubleshooting, and if it was something along the lines of a more serious error and you tried the basic troubleshooting steps, then you could always come in and open up the system and application log files, and you could compare what's happening on the machine at those particular times when the backup kicked off. So because the Mozy client is running with the system time, you can compare it against these times here. So you can see what's happening on the system, and you can compare and contrast to see, okay, was there something happening in my system at the same time? So as you can see here, at this point here, it's giving me an error, and it was an application error. So that was when we killed the Mozy service there a moment ago. So it's reported as well in the system and application log files for Windows. So these are available to any Windows user. You would have the system log file as well on a Mac machine. And again, the client on the Mac software is also going to show you the timestamps of the actual machine. In terms of the history tab on the Mac client, what does it look like? It's a very similar view. It's slightly different, just very so slightly different, but the premise is the same behind it. Instead of an up and a down in terms of the error message on top and the explanation below, the Mac is just on left and right. So it's just slightly different, but the premise is the same, and it gives you the same information. But it just does allow you to do some basic troubleshooting. Okay, so the history tab here, as you see, there's a bit more, it's just slightly different. So if we remember a second ago, if we just click back in here, it was the top and the bottom. With the Mac, it's just to the left and to the right. So if you select on a backup here, it'll give you the information over on the right hand side here, and the same with an error message here. The slight difference is that when we had the hyperlink on the Windows machine like that, instead of calling it out like a hyperlink like that on the Mac machine, it's just the more info button. And if you click that more information button, it does the same thing. It goes directly to our Knowledgebase articles and the relevant Knowledgebase article for this error message. Okay, so slightly different, but the premise is the same for Mac users. Okay, so there are some of the basic things you can do directly from the client. You can use the history tab. You can compare it to what was happening on the system if you want to go that deep. If you don't, then the history tab should give you enough to at least open up the error message and take you to the Mozy knowledge base, where you can actually answer some of the questions. The other thing that you can look for as well on a Windows or Mac machine is if you want to open up the log files, then you can open up those as well. The easiest way to get the log files, if you are, say, opening a support case, is if you hold down Shift and on the keypad and right click on the Mozy icon in the system tray, you'll have the option there to collect log files for Mozy support. That will create a zip file, okay, with all the logs, all the relevant logs that Mozy needs to troubleshoot the issue. Not only just the client logs, but it will collect all the database logs as well as the user's system and application logs. And that allows them, when you send them to Mozy, our support agents can analyze all the goings on the machine in terms of the actions being carried out, the processes being run from the system and application logs, and also from our own log files. So we can compare and contrast. So what I was suggesting that you may do on your machine in terms of looking at the system and application log files and looking at the timestamps, we could do the same when you send on those log files to us and see if there's any issues being identified there. So you can do that if you wish. You can also take the log file and use our log analyzer on the website. I'll show you that now in a moment. So if you wish, as I say, you can hold down Shift right click and collect log files for support if you need to, and they'll generally end up in a zip file. And if you select the location for them, you may decide to choose them for the desktop, and it will end up in a zip file, something like this. If you open that up, I'll just show you here now the various log files that are within that. So as I say, there's the standard Mozy log, but there's also additional database files and the system and application log files, so that we can actually do a full diagnosis of what's actually happening on the machine. Okay, so as you see there, these are all the log files that are contained in it. Okay, so it does give us a good idea and a good understanding of what's happening on the machine. Generally, if we can't get these log files, normally what you may have encountered previously is a support agent asking you to do a remote session. And the purpose of that, again, is to see what's happening in the user's environment. Because sometimes if a Mozy fails with an error, it's not the Mozy software that's failing, it may be something that's in the environment. So something like an antivirus software can sometimes maybe block Mozy from running. A firewall, there may be an update to the firewall software that maybe you're using in your organization, or maybe you're using at home. Maybe a software update to it, and something might be tweaked slightly with that new update of the software. And even though your backup's working fine before, that slight tweak might have made a change to something that Mozy was using for backup, or maybe a port out to connect to the internet. And without that now, it's causing the backups to fail. So sometimes it can look like it's the Mozy is failing, but it could be just something in the environment on the machine too. And yes, obviously, I mean, because it is a software, there could be a Mozy issue as well. I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying that sometimes when we get an error message and a support agent looks to do a remote session with you, or looks for all the log files, it's because there's a potential for other aspects on the machine. Stuff that you may not have initiated. It may have been a Windows update. It may have been an update to a particular software, another software that you're using. Something small can sometimes cause a lot of issues. And just because Mozy runs on such a regular basis, it's normally the one that picks up these changes first and these issues first. Okay, and it then starts reporting that as an error for us, and it does tend to catch your attention then because your backups are not working. So in terms of then, if we looked at everything on our machine in terms of the antivirus software, if you have antivirus software, you can actually select if you want to actually do a full scan of your system. You can also select folders and locations. So with tasks, you can choose areas that you want to actually block from scanning. So if you have a particular, sometimes with the Mozy antivirus, Mozy can get one of the Mozy files on the Windows software can get corrupted, and that's our filter file. And basically what our filter file does is that when you start a backup, we go to a database in the Mozy folder called changes. And in that is all the files that have changed since the previous backup. All the files that were selected for backup that have changed since the previous backup, we get a quick list of them. To get that quick list, what's happening is that our file filter is just monitoring the files that you've selected for backup to see if there's any changes. Okay, so when you submit a change, if you're working on, let's say, a Word document and you save it and you have that selected for backup on Mozy, the file filter sees, okay, well, there's been a change to this document, flag it to be backed up because it's changed. And because that file filter is working on an ongoing basis, sometimes antiviruses can misread it as a threat. They may think it's some sort of a virus, so they block it from running. So that can happen sometimes, and small things like that can stop your backups too. But it's a very easy and quick fix. You can just block that Mozy file filter from scanning, and if you ever encounter the issue, it's something that the support guys can really help with you very quick. Or you can even open up the knowledge base that we're going to look at now in a moment and find those answers for yourself really quickly and implement the changes very quickly. So we're just going to go look at the website now, so the support.mozy.com website. I'm going to pop up another poll here just to see if you've ever used the support website before. So this is our support.mozy.com website. Okay, so that's great. A lot of people, so there's a mixture of people that have either never used it or they've just used it maybe the one time, and then there's a couple that didn't actually know it existed, which is great, because that's the whole purpose of the webinars like this is to highlight you some of the features and some of the stuff that you get when you're using the Mozy software that you may not know existed. Okay, and support.mozy.com is one of them, and it's a really, really good website. We have a team dedicated inside in Mozy, and their sole task is actually showing or actually building and making improvements to the Mozy service and the Mozy website. So it's nice that to be able to show you something like this, because a lot of work goes into it in the background. Everything from thinking about how it's laid out, how to make it as usable as possible. So this iteration or this version of the software or the website that you're seeing right now, the support website, this was launched about a year ago, and it had a complete overhaul. And that project went on for a couple of months to actually even selecting how we'd actually present the website. So what you see here is on the landing page is a very action orientated view. And what I mean by that is that you'll notice that it's broken into little sections, little support topics, little boxes with quick little descriptions, and it's to help you get to where you want to go as quick as possible. You'll also notice that my one here says Mozy Pro. I can also select which version of the software I'm using. So if I'm using Home, I can switch it to Home. And what that does is that when I click into say Getting Started, it gives me the Mozy Home specific articles to that. If I switch to Mozy Enterprise or Mozy Pro, when I click into one of these options here, it's going to show me the specific articles for Pro or Enterprise. Now, some articles, obviously, because the features are the same across all of them, like say something like file selection or setting a scheduled or an automatic backup, something like that, they're going to be a unified article. So they're going to be available to all. But then if there's specific things that are only relevant to, say, a Mozy Pro user or an Enterprise or a Home user, then by selecting which one you want here, you'll get those specific articles targeted towards you. Okay, so it's action oriented, as I said. So if you open up, say, let's, for example, Get Started, what it's going to show you here is how you create your Mozy Pro account, purchase resources, some configuration options, additional steps, and so forth. And then down the left-hand side, those action-oriented tabs that were on screen when you came to the website are now down the left-hand side here. Okay, so if we just go back there to the main page, and we open up something like Setup, it tells you here, things like installing Mozy on Windows, installing Mozy again if on the different types of Sync or Mozy Mobile or the Mac client, how knowledge-based articles on configuring backups and so forth. So it does give you a lot more options. It does give you a wide variety of knowledge-based articles that you can get to really quickly, and as well as that, then you'll see stuff like troubleshooting. Okay, so troubleshooting any issues on any section of particular issues. So if you're having installation issues, it gives you some troubleshooting steps there. If you're having any other backup, say for example backup issues, in here it gives you more troubleshooting articles specific to that. It gives you some error messages that you may be seeing in the knowledge-based articles connected to those. And basically it's just trying to make it as easy as possible to access and navigate and view the kind of things that you're seeing in the software. Okay, so again, really useful. If you want to view your own log file, so when you collected log files for support, if you want to collect the Mozy log file, you can analyze logs here. So if I just jump back to the Windows VM here, if I open up, so if I want to just get the Mozy log file itself, okay, I go to Computer, I go down to the drive. So that would be my C drive in this instance. And of course it would. Live TV, it does break, of course. I have one that's grabbed previously and I'll just show you. So I can choose a file. Okay. Just grabbing my log file here that I put on my desktop specifically for today's session. And that uploads my log file from my machine. And what it does then is it presents me with any issues that are on the machine. It shows me, so it just tells me the information about the machine, and then it tells me what's happened in my last few backups. Obviously, this one's not great, but I'll show you one in a minute that has one or two errors. And basically what I can do from here again, as well as if I upload the log file here, it'll check the client version. It'll tell me if there's a newer version of the software available. It might prompt me to update that. If I have the last few backups here, if I have any errors, it'll be linking me to the Knowledgebase articles there. And I'll show you that then in a moment. So just really quick, I want to show you the different tabs. So when you land here, you're accessing the action-oriented view. We have additional tabs up here, our community, our knowledge base, and our documentation section. The documentation stuff is very much useful for Mozy Pro admins, enterprise users, and it gives the very specific documentation, step by step, how to do absolutely everything. So it would be more of a user guide, as you see here, the Mozy user guide and the Mozy administrator guide, and it gives you very detailed documentation written by our tech writing teams. The knowledge base articles then are more troubleshooting articles. So if you've had issues, if you need to, if you need to do some file selections, how you do that, and kind of general knowledge walkthroughs of items that will give you the issue, and then they'll give you the steps to carry out. Whereas the documentation is more rigid. It's more like a textbook per se, but it is very useful as well. That if you want to get the deep details in terms of how things work, then you can use that too. The knowledge base, it's easily searchable. The beauty of the Mozy knowledge base and the work that the guys in our e-services team have done is that you can search for Mozy errors directly from Google, and it will most often than not, I would say 99.9% of the time, the top search. If you get an error message on your machine, Mozy cancel error 1, and you type into Google Mozy cancel error 1, 99.99% of the time, the top return that you get from Google will be a link directly to the Mozy knowledge base article that's relevant. Okay, so that is one nice feature. If you do come to the support website, you can search in here too for any of our knowledge base articles. So if you have, let's see, there's some ones I searched for before, say for cancel error 0, and search it, and it will return me the most relevant articles for that. Okay, so it will really lock that down for me and give me the most relevant articles. Okay, our community then is more of a chance to interact with fellow users. Okay, so the fellow users that we have in this, we encourage them to give their feedback and to start up threads. They may have something that they've seen, or they may be doing something. So for example, if I open up here Mozy for Windows, there's various topics here and threads that have been started by different people. You'll notice that there's a status in here. Not only do we encourage our users to monitor as well, but we assign our support agents time to actually monitor the community forums. So they get specific community forum moderation periods. And during that period, they go in and they monitor all the forums, and they go in and they put in answers to questions. They go in and they try and help users. If they see another user has given a solution to an issue for a customer, they'll mark that as the solution, and they'll mark it as the issue as solved. So again, it's a kind of it's as it says, it is a community. It's intended for people to share their information and share their knowledge. As I say, one of our top users in the forums tends to help people with a lot of stuff. It's an individual who enjoys, I suppose, helping people, because he or she has probably replied to over 2,000 or 3,000 threads in the last number of years, and they really are a very helpful user. You may get some help from them at some stage, username issues. a really good forum contributor and community contributor. But as I say, there's those of our support agents monitor it from time to time. They have all a set time that they will monitor it during the week. But also we have a specific community manager. You may see him, Sean. If you've been in the community before, Sean is our community manager. You may see his posts sometimes in the forums, and he's always in here and making sure that our forums as well as our social media interactions are kept on point. Okay, so you can get some help there. You can also, as well, speaking of social media, you can use our Twitter handle as well and get some assistance there. If you're not at your computer and you're on the go real quick, you can open up Mozy support on Twitter and you can shoot us off a quick message, so you can be accessed there as well. So there are a lot of options there for you if you want to look at doing some basic quick stuff yourself, if you don't really have the time to actually reach out to support. Okay, if you do have the time to reach out to support, you can open up My Support here, and that'll open up and it'll give you the chance to log in, and you'll come here to your support page. Okay, just a quick call out here. This is what I'm viewing here is my support page for my Mozy Pro account. So this is viewing it as an administrator for a Mozy Pro account. Home users, you'll notice that you don't have the option here for phone support. You will have the option for create case and chat. Pro users, enterprise users, we do have the option for phone support. And also the additional note you'll note here is that down here, if you are a home user, a pro user, if you have more than one machine backing up on your account, then you'll see in here a health score. And this gives you an overview of the account, how many machines are running successful backups and how many failures. If you click on the failures, it'll open up straight away those machines that are having any issue. Okay, it'll highlight the errors here for you, and it'll also show the machines down here. What that then does allow you to do is that it allows you to open a case, start a live chat if you wish to do that, view any cases that this machine has previously, and then as well as that, analyze the log. So that'll just take it to the log analyzer that I showed you a second ago, and it gives you the chance to upload the log file there. Okay, so it does give you a listing of the machines here and any issues. If you do attempt to open a case, if you hit the create case button, it'll populate all these fields for you already, which is kind of useful. And as well as that, then it'll give you some suggested articles. So that's another area as well. If you don't really exactly have the time to troubleshoot right now, but you want to open a case, you can do that. You can open an email case, and as you put in the description of the error here, or the actual error message here, and the description, it'll give you some knowledge base articles that might be relevant to that you can attempt to do while at some stage if you wish. And then wait for the reply back from Mozy support's tech agents. If you attempt to open a live chat, the same thing will happen. So if you try to do a start a chat, if you start it directly from here, it'll ask you to input the affected user and the subject and what's the case reason. So if I say assistance with Mozy Home and I put in, sorry, I'm leaning towards the camera, my head's probably getting very big, and then so I select the system Mozy Home. It gives me some relevant knowledge base articles here that may help me. Okay, so it does give you chances at all times to get as much information as you can before having to actually reach out to support. And it's not a sense that we don't want you to reach out to support. It's more so that we know your time is valuable, and if it's possible to give you some steps that you can try now and resolve your issue, we want to do that as quickly as possible. Okay. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to take any questions that you may have. If there was anything I covered and I covered it too quickly or you couldn't understand my strange accent, then just tell me and I can revisit it again. Okay, so I'm going to start in on some of the questions that are here. Okay, so we have a quick question here from Janet. I'm just going to read quickly. So that's a good question, Janet. As a new user, how do you decide which files to back up? Do I initially need to list each file? data from software like Word, pictures. What else would I want to back up? So what I would say off the bat there is 100% what you should be backing up, I don't know. Because it's your machine, it's your data. I'm not 100%. I'm not saying that to be smart. What I will say is that I like to use the analogy, if you think about, okay, so if you come in here and you're going to select files, what I will say to you instead is to think of it like this. What if I was to take your computer off you right now, and I was to give you another computer that was a blank canvas, what do you need on that machine right now? You know, what's important for you to have on that machine? So let's say, for example, if for a lot of our home users, that's kind of like their kind of home documentation. Maybe they have a home balance sheet that they keep on their home machine. Maybe they have specific personal pictures from holidays and vacations that are very important and very important to them. A business user, say for a Mozy Pro user, it might be very important for them to back up the stuff that they're using on a day-to-day basis, that they need to do their job. So that's the way I would think about it, is to look here first at and think about the stuff that's on your machine that's very important to you, that you could not be without. You know, say like something like your music from iTunes is probably not that important because it's on iTunes anyway, that you can just download it again when you log into another device, you know, the music you person from iTunes. But stuff like personal home account documents that are on your machine would be very relevant to be backing up. In terms of how do you go about selecting, I would always encourage the backup sets here, because it allows you to, say for example, you mentioned there specific data from software like Word or pictures. The backup sets here, so if I click on this backup set here, you'll notice word processing documents. If I just right click on that and edit it, what's actually happening here is that we're searching the entire C drive, okay, for all these file types. Okay, so I'm just going to make that a bit bigger there, if I can. So we're searching the C drive for all these different file types. So any types of Word documents that you may be using, so .doc, RTFs, PDFs, all those kind of things, we're searching for them and we're adding them into the backup set. And then when you select that backup set, it's selecting all those files from your C drive. It's the same for things like pictures. You know, there's a picture backup set as well that you can do. If you want to, you can create your own custom backup set for specific things. So what I would say, Janet, is I obviously don't know 100% what is the most important stuff on your machine, but that's the way I would think about it. What are the most important things to you on your machine that you cannot do without? They should be the first things you should be backing up. Something like an executable, say if you've downloaded Google Chrome and you're using Google Chrome as your internet browser, backing up the file that you install that with is not a priority, because you can download that again from the internet. A particular Word document with, say, if you were a budding novelist and you were writing a book yourself, then obviously that would be very important to backing up. Okay, so I hope that answers your question, Janet. Let me know if it doesn't. If there are any other questions, as I say, just please pop them into the question window and we'll go through them. So as I was saying as well, in terms of searching in Google, so if you do Mozy server error 2, so as you can see here, it'll take you straight to the Mozy webpage. So it'll take you directly to the Mozy Knowledgebase articles. So you can search relatively very quickly using Google as well, any of the Mozy errors that you may see. Okay, so that's just showing you that there. It's going off one of the questions. Are there any other questions in terms of what we've covered here? Well, I'd say the biggest ones that are very useful to you are the history tab, really, on your own machine to see what's actually happening. So yeah, so I mean, if you're looking at the history tab, it can give you a very quick overview of what's happening in terms of why it stopped backing up. And also another one that you might see sometimes is that you'll see your usage tab down here. Okay, now this is because this is a training account. There's a ridiculous amount of storage on there that I'll never use, 100 gigabytes. Like my own actual desktop machine, I roughly back up between, I think it's somewhere in the region of about 18 gigabytes, and that would be probably a lot for a desktop or kind of a laptop machine. But sometimes what you'll get as well as that, and it's a big support driver is our account error trees. Okay, and it seems like, oh, that's a big issue. Why it's stopping? It will stop your backups, but all it really is that you've reached the maximum amount of quota. So you've hit the limit of your storage, and that's what's causing your backup to fail. Okay, so if you have 10 gigabytes of data, or if you have 10 gigabytes of backup quota purchased, and your machine is selected for 12 gigabytes of data, what will happen is we'll back up the first 10 gigabytes, and then we'll hit and we'll say, okay, well, there's still 2 more gigabytes to go, but there's only 10 gigabytes of storage assigned to this account. So then it's going to throw you an account error 3. There's 2 options there, depending on which way you want to look at it. You can either purchase more storage if you think you need it, or you can look at what you've selected for backup. Okay, and it's a very simple fix in terms of an error message. It's one that we see a good bit. And it's a nice one because it's a very easy fix. It's only going to be one thing. You'll either adjust what files you're selecting for backup, and maybe there's some stuff that you don't really need to be backing up, or else it's just a simple go in and add additional storage to your account. So they'd be the kind of ones we would see. Cancel errors as well are very common. I know I gave you one there in the example of the cancel error 1 where the service is stopped. But a common enough one as well is cancel error 0. And that's just basically that the internet connection has been terminated. And it's very common with laptops when we just close the lid. Okay? So we close the lid, or we turn off the Wi-Fi. I've been guilty of it myself. Probably not something I should be readily admitting. But I have on a previous laptop, there was a button on the side of it that you could switch on and off manually the internet or the Wi-Fi, and picking up the laptop one day, I accidentally switched it off. Didn't realize it, and spent 10 minutes trying to troubleshoot a connection error. Yes, so that was a great experience and a nice one to be telling people. But small things like that can happen, and so they do happen, and we just throw in an account error 3 then at times. So if there are any other questions, pop them in. I still have 10 minutes available for this, allotted for this session. So I'll leave it open for another minute or two to see if there's more questions. If there's not, we'll wrap it up. What I will say is thank you very much for taking the time to join me today. I know it's not easy to be taking an hour out of your work day, especially for those on the West Coast. It's the very start of your day. For those on the East Coast, it's mid morning. It's around lunchtime, or getting towards lunchtime. And anybody here over in EMEA, it's getting close to your dinner, because we're getting late in the day. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm going to stay here and look to see if there's any more questions. But if you don't have any more questions, then thanks for your time, and we will hope to see you next month. We'll be sending out that invite. Will probably be out to you around the 2nd or 3rd week of April. So watch out on the newsletter, and it'll also be on our social media, on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn as well around that time, where you can actually access the links. Okay, so we have another question here. Okay, so Janet, your question is there a way to back up software, particularly expensive ones? So what could you give me an example? Is it that you have, say, something like, I'll give you an example. I use a software for e-learnings, Articulate it's called, and that's installed on my machine, and it is, as you say, quite an expensive. It's quite an expensive software, but I suppose I'm at an advantage in the sense that I can download that from their website at any time. I just need my license key. So what the main thing is that I need for that is what I purchased is the license key. If it's a software that you can't download again, maybe it's something that you installed off a disk or you installed off a USB drive, then yeah, you could back it up. It's not going to be the latest version of that software, but you can obviously back that up, and all you need to do is to locate it in the file system tab. So so if you're concerned about any of the backup sets, so actually just before I jump onto that, was that question answered in terms of to back up expensive softwares, or is there more depth that you want me to go into on that? In terms of the backup sets, if you're unsure of what they're looking at, you can just right click on any of them and edit backup set, and it will tell you in there then what they're actually looking at. Okay, so there's not a description per se on here, but if you just give me, well, I'll just continue talking about it here, and I'll just check over here. So I'm just going to quickly check in here, if you just bear with me. Should be. So I'm just going to check now, as I said, there's not a specific there's nothing you should see inside in the inside the actual software itself, but there are knowledge-based articles there that will describe to you what backup sets are and how to use them. Our documentation section as well will give you a breakdown of some of those backup sets. But while I'm here, what I will do is I'll just quickly show some of the most common ones. Just give me 2 seconds. Okay, so the most kind of common ones, the word processing documents. It's going to look at all various types of documents, as we mentioned. So there's going to be PDFs, .doc, Windows stuff, rich text files, Notepad files. All those will be picked up by that word processing documents one. If you want to add in a specific software that you have yourself, if you know the file type ending, you can just add it in here. If you want to say something like presentation softwares, it looks at all various types of softwares. So a lot of these here that you'll see are, a lot of these are PowerPoint ones, but there are additional additional presentation softwares that are listed in here as well. On my Mac client, I pick up stuff like Keynote, which is a Mac software for presentations, and so on. Let's look at, say, something like email and contacts. It will tell you the specific provider it's looking at. So Outlook Express, Eduro, Thunderbird, Outlook, just regular Outlook, Internet Explorer favorites. It's not one I would generally select for backup myself. Things like music. Okay, so again, the music backup set is it's searching again your entire C drive, and it's looking for all these different file types. So MP3s, MP4s, there's the WMAs. So there's all different types of media files. We put in there all the most, I suppose, commonly used files. We'll tend to put them into our pre-prepared backup sets. Things like spreadsheet and databases then would be obviously your Excel type stuff and so forth. Does that answer your question, Janet? If you have any more questions, please do just pop them in. We will take them away. Suzanne, you... Great. Glad I could answer those questions for you, Janet. So, if there are no more questions, again, as I said a while ago, for those who have probably heard it already, thank you for joining this month's webinar. It's my pleasure to be here to give you some additional information. As I say, it's always great to see and highlight some things that you may not have known, or you may have visited once, or looked at once, or maybe twice, but you never actually used it, or you never really thought, oh, actually, I could use that myself. Sometimes when we look at some of the stuff and we see it and it's like there's a lot of information there and we're kind of like unsure of what it does, then we're hesitant to actually use it. And my hope here is that I can show you a few of the features so that you can have a go at it yourself, before you have to take up some time of your day to reach out to us here in support. We're more than happy to help when you do reach out to us, and we look to resolve your issues as quickly as we possibly can. But I know for some of you, it's always nice to have a go at something yourself before you have to reach out to support. So I hope you're able to learn something here today. If you weren't able to learn something here today, I hope at least you had a good time. And we'll see you all next month. So thank you very much and have a good day.